We now call this meeting to order. If you could please pay attention to Councilmember Hiller for the invocation, and then to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise if you're able.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to introduce, with a little background, but Pastor Harry Christian from Asbury Mount Olive United Methodist Church in District 1. A little background on that church. In the beginning, there were two black Methodist Episcopal churches in Topeka back in the 1800s. One was in North Topeka, and one was in what was then called South Topeka. Asbury was the church in North Topeka. At one point was even attended by Vice President Charles Curtis. It withstood the floods of 1903 and 1951, and I think is still standing. Yep, and in use. The church in the south, Mount Olive, was organized in 1877 by 10 pioneers at 1100 Kansas Avenue, moved to its first Tennessee Town location in a blacksmith shop in the back of 1100 Buchanan, and was there until 1974. At that point, through the conference, I believe, Asbury and Mount Olive were united, and the congregation came together, tore down the old church there, and built the new one that you see today in 1975. It's a wonderful center to our neighborhood for faith and for activism. And I introduce Pastor Harry Christian.
Let's pray. Well, God, as always, you come give you thanks and praise on this wonderful evening. God, as always, we now invite you into this meeting, invite you into this council. God, I ask now that you be our hearts, ears, and minds, God, that you would guide and direct us. Be mindful to pray for those in Oklahoma and Mississippi. Be mindful to pray for our citizens here in this great state, in the great city of Topeka. God, be with us, guide us, and direct us, that your will be done. In the Master's name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go into the presentation, I just wanted to indicate that we have two council members that are ill, fighting the cold that's going around. We have Councilmember Lesser, who is not going to be able to attend, and Councilwoman Clear has also sent her regrets. We now proceed with presentations. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I have City Engineer Brian Faust, who will come forward and make a presentation regarding the Kansas Avenue Bridge Repair Project. Brian.
Good evening. Tonight we would like to provide you with an update on the damage to the Kansas Avenue Bridge, as well as an estimated cost and time frame for those repairs. The next several slides will highlight some of the damage to the bridge. This is a view looking west at the north span of the northbound lanes. The area that is a little bit darker in color is the area that was damaged or impacted by the fire. This is a view from underneath the northbound span. You can see several areas that are much darker or charred due to the fire. And in the distance of the picture, you can actually see one of the steel beams has warped due to the intense heat of the fire. And this is actually a close-up of that same beam that shows the significant sideways movement of the beam. The gentleman there is holding a string line. For an undamaged beam, that string line would be flush with the bottom flange of the beam. Okay, the last picture, the damage I'm going to show tonight, is looking up, again the same span, the north span, looking up at the damaged concrete as well as the web of the beam. You see from this picture, the web of the beam has actually moved approximately 2 inches from where it should be. So the first step in the process was to determine if we could actually salvage the spans. And so what we did, we cut 2 test specimens from the damaged beam, one from the web and one from the lower flange. And those 2 test specimens were tested by the Kansas Department of Transportation. What those test results showed was that the damaged beam lost roughly 50% of its original strength. So based on these test results, the north end of the northbound lanes will be replaced. The aerial photograph here shows the approximate area that will be replaced. And when we talk about replacement, we'll remove the concrete deck, remove the steel girders, fabricate new girders and set those, and replace the concrete deck. Here, the cost for the repair of that initial investigation was roughly $7,000. The design, the inspection, the traffic control that you currently see out there on the northbound, the two-way traffic that's on the southbound lane, we've included that, as well as the cost for construction. The total cost for this is estimated at $730,000. Back in early February, we actually reconfigured the southbound lanes to provide for two-way traffic, and the tentative schedule for reopening the northbound lanes would be in the late fall of this year. At this time, I do want to introduce Mr. Craig Maddox with Finney and Turnipseed and thank him for all his work on the project. He has been a tremendous help from the initial investigation all the way through to design. I'd also like to recognize Jeff Hunt, our Assistant City Engineer, and Christina Erickson, our Traffic Engineer. They both have done a tremendous job on this project. And with that, any questions that you have?
Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How does traffic control cost $75,000?
Actually, we have traffic control out there for about 8 months. And so when you look at the southbound lanes where we divided it to two-way traffic, we have a contract with Seahawk, around approximately 8 months, and it's very expensive.
To rent the traffic barriers?
Correct, all the delineators, the signs, and for maintenance of those during that 8-month period.
It doesn't cost that much to do traffic control in other places. I mean, how much does this stuff cost to buy? I mean, $75,000 buys a lot of type-through barricades, so I guess I'm not understanding. This is a significant amount of money for 8 months when we maintain signs all over the community.
Right. It is a significant amount. That's actually fairly representative of the cost we see from our traffic control vendors. This is an extended period. I mean, normally we have those for a few weeks or a few months, but this one is actually 8 months.
And so why didn't we buy them?
One of the issues with purchasing them is actually the maintenance of those, and every day going back out and checking to see if they're down. It's just something in the past that we've rented those, had a contractor responsible for the installation and the maintenance, and that's what we chose to do this time.
I'd like some more information about that, because that's a significant amount of money for just checking to see if some temporary barricades are up. So I'm not understanding why I mean, how much does it cost to have somebody drive past every day and set them back up if they've fallen down? I can't imagine it's that much money. So if I could get some more information on that, that would be great. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. When you are doing the construction, will the bridge be closed or open?
During construction, the northbound lanes will remain closed, but we'll still allow two-way traffic on the southbound lanes.
Okay, so in my terms then, the bridge will be open. People will still be able to go north and
Correct.
south on that bridge. Thank you. Thank you.
Additional questions? Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Faust, a question. I think the question's been raised to prevent this in the future. Is there any thought of having fencing there on the north side? I went by the south side today. I noticed there's actually vehicles parking under it.
I'll cover that, Councilman. For us, right now, we are looking at a staged approach relative to this type of keeping the area clear underneath the bridge. At this point, we put up the no trespassing signs. We're having it monitored by the law enforcement. And so for us, that's what we're looking at right now. As time goes on, if there is a need based on an inability to keep that area clear, then we will look into putting in fencing and doing something further. Rather than taking the additional costs, we're going to do it as a stepped and measured approach. At some point, if we need to, we will fence that area off. It just kind of depends, and we'll see how things go. Rather than making a huge expense right now, if we don't need to, we're going to hold off on doing that.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilman Cohen.
Could you tell, was the damage done by that one fire, or was the damage done over time by just fires being lit under the bridge?
Actually, the majority of the damage was caused by that one fire.
Okay.
To deflect or warp the structures as you saw, the temperatures had to reach in excess of 1,500 degrees to that kind of damage, so it got pretty hot down there.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. City Manager, if we're going to put up no trespassing signs, what does that cover? Does it just cover that end of the bridge? Does it cover both ends of the bridge? Have we been proactive on other bridges and looked at that as well?
Councilwoman, it protects that particular end of the bridge, and we have analyzed the other bridges that we have, and we'll continue to monitor so that if we see any type of issues in other bridges, we'll take the same appropriate action. And right now, we're not seeing that in the other bridges and the approaches, but we're being monitored by staff.
I guess because, I have a concern. I always see up under the bridge, over there by Let's Help, a tent up, and sometimes he'll sleep under the bridge. It's cold out there, This could potentially happen there. Under the Branner Bridge at 6th and Branner, we're always finding somebody under there. And further along, we're always finding somebody under there. So, we've got a lot of spots where and I don't know, maybe I need to sit down and talk to you of my concerns, but this raises a huge issue with me because of the cost. And
Understandable.
the reason why I asked for an update is people are just skeptical about going over the bridge, because we went from shutting it down to now narrowing it off. And so I just want to hear as well from somebody that it is safe to go over, because we did have it shut down and now we've got it, on one side, so that people will feel more comfortable with that, because we have a lot of people that travel in from the east that hit 24 and then come back over to come downtown, and I think that's a huge part.
And we're very confident the southbound 2 lanes are safe for travel. Otherwise, if we had any concerns at all, we would have shut that down also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions or comments, thank you very much for your time and for the presentation. We now move on to the consent agenda, to the roll call.
Mayor De La Isla.
Here.
Council members Hiller.
Here.
Clear. Ortiz.
Here.
Emerson.
Here.
Padilla.
Here.
Jensen.
Present.
Mays.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
And Leslie.
We now move on to item 3 in the agenda, the consent agenda, if the clerk would read.
A is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller granting Greater Topeka Partnership an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at C concerning noise prohibitions. B is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Sandra Clear granting Caw Valley Bank an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at C concerning noise prohibitions. C is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller granting Greater Topeka Partnership an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at C concerning noise prohibitions. D is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Jeff Cohen granting Happy Basset Brewing an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 concerning noise prohibitions. E is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout allowing and approving city expenditures for the period of December 29, 2018 through February 1, 2019, and enumerating said expenditures therein. F are minutes of the special meeting of February 9, 2019, and the regular meeting of February 19, 2019, and there's a list of open after midnight applications and cereal malt beverage, and staff is recommending approval.
We have heard the consent agenda. What is the pleasure of the body? We have a motion for approval by Councilman Emerson. We have, I was going to say Henderson. We have a second by Councilmember Jensen. If there's no comments or discussion, we proceed with voting.
We have 8 yes.
8 having voted yes, the motion passes. We now move on to action items. Item A, if the clerk would read.
A is a resolution introduced by City Manager Brett Trout setting the public hearing to consider the advisability of establishing a Community Improvement District, CID, for the Sherwood Crossing Villa West development at 29th and Wanamaker pursuant to KSA 12-6A26 at C.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Governing body, tonight we ask for consideration and approval of a resolution to set a public hearing date for April 2nd for 2019. This continues the efforts that we've had relative to the Sherwood Crossing or current Villa West properties as they move forward, the steps that are necessary to have the governing body consider incentives for their project. So tonight, I ask your approval of that said resolution to set the hearing date.
Before we proceed with that, we do have 2 individuals signed up to speak on this item. The first one to be recognized is Mr. David Christie.
Mayor, council members, thank you so much for the opportunity to visit with you. I wanted to get on the record to say that we are excited about being here. We are terribly interested in living up to the procedures of what has been established by the ordinances to go through the public process with incentives. And I felt like I had a chance to visit with Councilman Heller about the situation, and we want to make sure that there's been total transparency, and we've had the opportunity to visit with everybody about this. I want to thank most of you for taking the time to meet with me this week and in the past several weeks. And so I'm not going to make any presentation tonight because that'll be done on April 19th on March 19th and April 2nd. I'd like to just introduce briefly Ferd Neiman, who's my partner, who's an attorney. He's an incentive attorney that works with me, and he's going to be handling this project. In addition, you'll see him again, but I want to make sure that you had a face that you could put with a name and so on. So thank you for your consideration. I would ask you all approve this tonight so we can move forward, and we're drawing the plans and we're excited about getting underway. So.
Thank you for your comments. The second person signed up to speak on this item is Mr. Fred Neiman. Ferd, sorry.
No problem, that happens a lot. Ferd Neiman, good to see you. As Dave mentioned, I'll be back in front of you. I've met most of you. If I haven't met you yet, I look forward to get to know you a little bit more. I'll be here on the 19th, and obviously that's real meat and potatoes of the TIF, and then later on for the CID, where we'll really look at the underlying financial assumptions, things like that, the process, and we've met with city staff several times, and your outside financial advisors, your legal counsel, things like that. So just want to say hello, look forward to seeing you guys again, and look forward to making an impact here in the city of Topeka. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Being no further comments from the public at this point in time, I will ask if there's any questions or discussion from this body. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, David, for making your references. I just want to follow up. I did make some comments, and I had some strong feelings last time. I retain those. I still feel like I would prefer that the procedure be such that we as a council, and therefore the public, are at least fully briefed about what's being proposed, what kind of due diligence the staff has done through it, and the pros and cons that they have weighed, and how they feel it is appropriate in accordance with our TIF policy and procedures, or any others, whatever the incentive might be, before we move forward, so that we don't give an inappropriate message. Fortunately, today, we have one of the best developers ever, and so it's a good time to talk about our procedures, because it doesn't have anything to do with them, okay? But I think we want to do more of this. We want to consider more of these opportunities, and so I just wanted to pitch one more time that I hope we can add that full briefing. Maybe it needs to be a discussion only or something, whatever's an appropriate way to do that, before we start on the proverbial train with them in the future. What I don't want to do in particular is get ahead of ourselves and find ourselves at odds with a developer or just kind of hanging out in the public going, oh, what are we doing here about X or Y? There will be eager folks who want to do some things that we may not want to go through with, and I want everyone involved to be able to go through it in a really methodical way. With that, obviously, the council is ready to go forward with this one. Still think the CID is a little ahead of, I know there's some scheduling problems to get these things moving too, but I think we're a little ahead of ourselves, but I will support it tonight so we can move on. Thank you.
Is that in the form of a motion, Councilwoman Hiller?
I'm not going that far.
Councilman Cohen makes a motion, Councilman Mays seconds that motion. Seeing no discussion from the body, I think we now proceed by voting.
We have 8 yes.
8 having voting yes, the motion passes. We now move on to item B, if the clerk would read.
B is a resolution introduced by council members Tony Emerson, Aaron Mays, and Michael Lesser, sitting as a transient guest tax committee, allocating transient guest tax funding to the Sunflower Soccer Association.
I guess I'll call on Councilmember Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the memo from Deputy City Attorney Feeney states, in 2012, the governing body allocated 1% of our transient guest tax to fund improvements at the Sunflower Soccer Complex. The initial projects were completed on time and under budget. That, along with the fact that more funds were generated by the TGT than forecast, has resulted in an excess amount of funds in the account. So Sunflower Soccer approached the TGT committee last year with a request to use the remaining funds. The committee met 3 times over the past year to discuss their proposal, and I have to thank Mr. Mays and Mr. Lesser, who's not here tonight, but watching at home because I got a text from him. So get well soon, Mike. But had a significant amount of time meeting, as well as I think we all individually met with Sunflower Soccer. So we met 3 times over the past year to discuss this proposal. The initial ask from Sunflower Soccer was for the full projected amount of about $3.5 million. Neither the committee nor Visit Topeka thought this was a wise investment, and we sent Sunflower out with the charge that we needed to see a solid business plan in place before we allocated any of the funds. Over the course of 6 months and 2 more meetings, Sunflower's new director, Andrew Fletcher, and his board of directors crafted a plan that the committee believes will leverage the city's investment and the assistance of private partners in the community to provide long-term sustainability. Thus, at our last meeting, we considered all the items that Sunflower requested. From the initial list of items, we first paired out the items that weren't facility improvements. For instance, new goals to replace the homemade and very heavy metal goals they currently use. To his credit, Mr. Fletcher made a profit on his operations this past year, and he has agreed to fund those and like items out of their earnings. The committee believes this is wise and keeps pressure on Sunflower to stay profitable so they can keep making those improvements. We next looked at the items that, while they would greatly enhance the facility, we thought were candidates for private fundraising, both because of their size or the length of time. Those items included an indoor facility, again, putting the responsibility on Sunflower to raise funds outside of tax dollars. In the end, we got down to the list that you see here in the resolution of these. I believe there's 5 items. Items that Mr. Fletcher believes are critical to getting the facility back up to snuff and allowing it to remain the regional draw, as well as a place where thousands of our citizens go on spring, summer, and fall weekends to participate in or watch soccer. This was also supported by Visit Topeka and the hoteliers who attended the 3 meetings. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. We also have Mr. Fletcher, as well as one of his board members here, and Mr. Allen, who helped him with his business plans.
Do we have any questions from the body? Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. Tony, is the list too long that you can read it?
No.
Of the plan? That's one thing. And another comment is, I have some people at work that are huge soccer players. They go to Kansas City to play soccer, and they play here too. One of the things I've mentioned before, and it's never gotten off the ground, and I see we have a new CEO or president or whatever we're going to call him, is in Kansas City, they go out and they ask different businesses, like if they'll give them a drink with their meal, and they hand them out at the gate when people are coming through. That's one of the things, to tie them into places to go eat or wherever, because you get so many people. And, you know, soccer, we have to bring little kids, so we got to bring grandma, and it's a family thing, you know.
Right.
And I don't know if that's ever been done. I don't believe so. Or my friend would have told me. Another thing, in Kansas City, they charge parking fees, which goes back into the facility, and I've never seen that done. They charge huge fees, which I don't think we have to do that, but that is kind of a draw to be self-sustaining. So there's a couple of things that they're already used to doing wherever they go, but they look for their little paper to say $2 off or kids eat free or whatever. And I just think that's good for Visit Topeka, and I think that's also good for Sunflower as well. So I'm hoping that somebody's listening and we can incorporate that, and because like I said, that's one of the complaints that I've heard is when we go to Kansas City, we know we're paying those $10 parking fees, $15 parking fees, but also to enhance back into the Sunflower.
Councilmember Emerson, yes.
That's an excellent point, Mrs. Ortiz, and I hope they are listening. I will tell you, I don't want to, for competitive reasons, I don't want to say too much, but one of the things that these improvements are going to enable is Mr. Fletcher has several contacts, people that want to bring tournaments back here. One of the problems we have, and one of the things is just top dressing the fields, recrowning them. The fields for now, since they've been made, haven't really been maintained, haven't been top dressed and such. There's holes, and we've lost some tournaments because of that.
I can see that.
So that's one of the things here. But no, great suggestion.
Additional comments or questions?
Oh,
yes.
would you like the list?
She promised for you.
So the championship field cost not to exceed $200,000. Recrown the existing grass soccer fields cost not to exceed $234,000. Complete a perimeter walking trail cost not to exceed $60,000. An outdoor gathering space and fitness area cost not to exceed $16,000. And additional practice space cost not to exceed $50,000. And just to explain on the additional practice space, right now, the only fields they have to practice on are the fields they also play on. So it creates a lot of pressure on those fields throughout the week, and they need them. If they had another field there, they could let those fields rest between games and recover. And I don't know if Mr. Mays, as another member of the committee, wants to add anything.
If you would,
Yes,
Mayor.
Councilman May.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Emerson, for acknowledging me and having me say something. No, I feel like when we first started this process, the folks involved were all very far apart, and we were nowhere near an agreement. And I think the process worked. We probably met, it seemed like more than we needed to initially, but I think it worked out and we got a good product at the end of it. I think everybody was satisfied with what we came up with, and I hope it leads to some great successes. And with that, I would make a motion to approve this.
We have a motion for approval of the plan. We have a second by Councilman Emerson. Additional comments or questions? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
We have 8 yes.
8 having voting yes, the motion passes. We now move on to item C, if the clerk would read.
C is an update and possible action on the proposed camping ordinance.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. We need to schedule another meeting, and we just haven't done that. I'll take the fault for that. But we do have a lot of information, and a lot of other information was given. I do want to sit down with the city attorney. I've got some things that I want to run by her to see if we can get some type of closure for some of the business owners, but I don't foresee that. I do want to meet with Corey, and I've promised her that, and I just haven't done that. So that's kind of where we're at, but I will schedule another meeting. We've gotten a lot of information, and then again with this fire, that's very, very concerning. Also, we've tied into, I'm trying to think of the name of it, the initiative for children and families. I can't think of the name of it right now. Can you think of it, Mayor?
You made me go blank.
I
As
wasn't.
of first is the voucher thing, but that's not it, right?
No.
No.
There's, and this has to do with, also with homeless children. And so, we had a big meeting on it last month, and I wanted to see kind of what came out of that, and that will be huge, another huge part of that. And what it is the state has, come together with, I'll get it in a minute, a group out of Kansas City. And they have taken their homeless children from 100 to 22%. So it's huge. But it doesn't only just reference the kids, it's the family as well. So a lot of stuff that we have started, we could implement in this progress. So we've gotten a really, really good start. But I'll get a meeting scheduled as soon as I talk to Corey and the attorney. So I'm looking at Sasha back there. What was the name of that, Sasha?
Impact Avenue.
Impact Avenue. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you. But it's a great program. It's just now getting off the floor, but I think it could be very instrumental to actually this ordinance as well, because we've got a lot of people, same people at the table, which is really, really awesome. When you have all of those entities at the table. So people are still emailing me, they're wondering what we're doing, and they still say that they want to help, and I think that's huge. I think that's really huge. I haven't forgot about you. Thank you.
Before we go any further with discussion, we do have 4 individuals signed up for public comment. The first individual to sign up is Mr. Russell Burton.
Well, council members, thank you for your time. Councilwoman Ortiz, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Fine, thank you. I've been working in conjunction with the city, Corey Wright, with Misty at KDHE, with Mary Tibbetts at Stormont Vale, Dennis Tenpenny at Vallejo. And with our group efforts, we have now contacted about 55 street homeless folks. We have brought 33 of those to the state office, to Corey's office rather, where they've gotten shelter plus care vouchers. The system, because of the cold weather that we've developed, is that I'm able to go out into the streets and identify people that qualify for shelter care plus under Corey's new Housing First model.
Sir, if you could please speak.
Corey's new Housing First model, and I'm able to go in and identify that they qualify, and then because of the cold weather, I've been able to say, now go get a hotel room. And they've been able to go to Motel 6 and stay in a hotel room in a central location. We have 20 in Motel 6 plus, and we can all the case managers and case workers can go there and contact everybody. They have phones. We have 30 people searching for houses right now. About 20%, about 5 of those people have already turned in their vouchers for houses. They've already made that decision, and they'll be getting housed in the next few days. This is probably the number of folks that we brought in is probably about half of the head count of the number of people that we believe, but the head count says are street homeless. There's more than that, obviously. But in short here, we've kind of developed a calliope with the community that actually flies and is able to go in and bring off the chronically street homeless. I'm talking about people who've been on the street for 17 years, for 5 years, with serious, severe, and persistent mental illnesses who've just not been able to get the assistance. And so if you could, and there will be some people here to speak tonight who are the recipients of those vouchers and the program that we've been running. I just wanted to share that with you guys, and I could tell you stories of, I'd basically go around the streets and interview people and say, hey, guess what? Go get a hotel room, and within 2 weeks is our goal. You'll be able to be permanently housed. You wouldn't believe the tears, I mean, it's just an unbelievable thing. People saying, I never thought this time would come in my life. I never thought people would come and step forward. So I appreciate, I don't know who in the city worked with Corey and did what, but I appreciate immensely what you guys have done. You guys have changed the lives of 33 people just tremendously. So thank you very much for your effort. Ms. Ortiz, you asked for somebody to figure out a way to solve this problem. I brought you folks at the last subcommittee meeting who were explaining to you how damaging the ordinance would be. I then went to the city and the state, and we all came up with a way to address and solve this problem without making it illegal, without throwing people in county jail, taking all of their property that they'll never be able to retrieve, destroying their lives, making it much, much more worse. And it will cost the city a ton of money. You'll have to pay lawyers to fight the ACLU. You'll have to pay more police to go down and harass the homeless. You'll put more people in your county jail, and it'll cost the 30 days in county jail, plus they don't have the fine. That's probably $5,000 it'll cost the county for each one of these folks. Lord, you could buy them a mini home for that kind of money. I mean, nobody wants to spend that kind of money. When you can do it this way, it's much more effective. It changes people's lives. It solves the problem. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your comments. The next person signed up for public comment is Randy Evans.
Thank you, Johnson. I'm one of those homeless people that turned around and did this program, and it's taking care of where I got a home. So that, I think it's a good idea what they're doing. And it needs to proceed so you get more homeless people off the streets. No, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate you coming here. The next person signed up to speak is Cheryl Richardson.
Hi, thank you all. I first and foremost want to tell you, this would have been totally impossible without you all. As a condition of staying at the Topeka Rescue Mission, you are forced, as a condition, to get a representative payee. These representative payees that they're assigned, are making us get, basically are not accountable. I in particular have over $13,000 unaccounted for. Randy and I were living on $25 a week, and I get almost $1,000 a month. So without you all, this would totally be impossible for us because we just could never save anything. As a result of that, we got a place today. And so now we can finally get married and be together. And I just want to thank you all very much. You have no idea what you're doing for the people out there, and we're so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking. The next person to speak is Robert Range. I'm sorry? Rangel. Oh.
Hello, my name is Robert Rangel. I want to tell you thank you for all the things you've done. And it means a lot to me to be able to have a home, to take and have my kids, my grandkids, and that will make part of my life. I'm 57 years of age. I've worked all my life. I ran into some problems at the very tail end of this deal. But I want to say thank you.
Thank you for coming, sir. Sir, I know you want to speak, but you you had a chance to sign up earlier.
I didn't know about that stuff. And, okay, well, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'm gonna ask that we let him speak.
Absolutely then.
You know, let's, he wants to.
That is awesome.
Yes, we'll suspend the rules.
Hi, my name is Ian Riddle. I saw the article.
Just a second, sir. I'm gonna ask that we suspend. A motion to suspend the rules to
We
let
have
this
a
gentleman
second?
have time to speak.
4 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you, very kind.
No, hold on, sir.
Just 1 second. We proceed with voting.
Bureaucracy,
Yeah.
We have 8 yes.
Thank you. You now have 4 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I'm not good with the procedure. My name is Ian Riddle, and this is in response to the Shelter Plus coming in, the funding. Contrary to what was just said, it is not a solution without appropriate supervision. I benefited from Shelter Plus Care. I also had a lot of support. I had Vallejo, I had church, I had... what we're doing is giving people with no concept of how to live a box so that they can stay warm for a minute, and the overwhelming majority are going to have another eviction notice in a few months because we just don't know how to live. I'm not saying them, I'm saying I didn't. When they send you out, they inspect the first place, and the people at Shelter Plus Care are awesome, and then they forget you. The people willing to accept this money, in large part, we want to think that they care, they do. However, they're taking guaranteed money knowing full well that nobody's going to check on them. You buy a cheap house, put a whitewash on it, and then it gets inspected, and nobody's paying attention to the fact there's rodents in the walls. A weird fact here, if you're subsidized, roaches are against code because they're really cheap to get rid of. Bed bugs aren't. I'm just saying that with this program, you don't know how sincere these people just were. You have possibly given them an opportunity to move forward into a life that we can only imagine as homeless people. And yet, by doing only a portion of what's needed, that is giving housing, you're actually a large percentage of the time setting up people who are basically defenseless for failure. So my reason for being here is simply to ask that as we give out these vouchers, don't have a one-time inspection. Have a monthly inspection. We have the money for it. And obviously it's for people with severe and persistent mental illness, and let me tell you something, guys, homelessness over an extended period of time is its own mental illness. We don't know how to live, period. I'm 49, I just got my first bath mat. Seriously. It would be helpful if someone with peer mentor abilities was involved in an aspect of checking up monthly. There's no bad people in this, but there is hopelessness to be extended if we don't follow through responsibly. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. You know, and I just want to pause here because I just want to make sure that everybody that's at home is taking a look at what's happening here. Our community is only as strong as the families that need us the most. and this is putting a face with a level of vulnerability that I can't imagine how hard it must have been for you guys to come over here today and speak up. And I want to say thank you, because we're here to serve all of you. And thank you for acknowledging that there is a challenge. Thank you for acknowledging things that maybe some of us have never dealt with and maybe we'll never understand. I'm not saying that we're going to have all the resources in the world to create a perfect solution, because there is no such thing as a perfect solution, but it's only by us having conversations that things are going to get better. So
Yeah, I
I thank
love
you
this.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Madam Mayor, and that's what this camping ordinance has done. When I look at Mr. Rango at our last meeting, I don't know if you remember him, Mr. Padilla, Councilmember Padilla, and he was so broken, and he was so hurt, and he acknowledged he needed help. And I think Corey and different people had gathered around him that were there that want to be a part of this team. And it looks like they helped him, because today he looks happy. He doesn't look as broken as he did before. So it's wonderful that we're having people come out of the woodwork that want to be a part and say, how can I help? And so I'm pleased to see that, because it's going to take all of us.
Yep.
It's going to take all of us. Thank you.
Councilman Padilla, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to follow up along with Councilwoman Ortiz. I think the comments she says are appropriate. Each one of the people who came up here today thanked us for what we're doing for them, but I think we need to thank them for sticking with us, for working through the process, for not giving up on us, even though when the efforts don't seem to fall short. I want to thank Corey and staff and everybody who has really worked hard to bring this about, because this is not unique to Topeka, but maybe what we're doing in Topeka is unique, and the success that we're having. And I credit the staff for doing that, and I credit the people who are receiving the resources for sticking with us. And I thank you, Robert, and everyone else for giving us the chance to do what we can. And I really appreciated the suggestions and advice that we got from our last speaker, because I totally agree. I don't think that you can start something and then not periodically check to make sure what you're doing is working correctly. And if it isn't, to make those adjustments that are necessary. So my congratulations to the group of you who came tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so there is no, Councilwoman Heller.
Well, thank you, and thank you, everybody. What he said, what everybody said. The question is, what do we do now? My understanding, I am so excited about the program for families and children, as well as the Housing First efforts that are going on. The question is then, what about this ordinance? What's an appropriate check-in time? How much time do these efforts need to sort of mature and prove out? And it sounds like we've got some things that are on some really good tracks. And I say that both procedurally, but my understanding is that out in the street, the idea that this ordinance is still sort of percolating around has people nervous that we could still suddenly show up and kick everybody out summarily. And so I don't know, and Councilwoman Ortiz, I think the fact that you invited the homeless task force and the practitioners out in the community to kind of own this for a while and work on it and gave them time, I think was so appropriate. So at this juncture, do we, certainly if the ordinance got everybody talking, both in the street and here, then it was kind of a good thing in that way. But if we're not, let's say we need to give it a year for these various initiatives to kind of get some legs under them and see how it goes, does the committee need to meet regularly with them, quarterly or whatever, just for progress reports? I mean, this is, because it's an active proposed ordinance, it's coming back here quarterly. So I'm trying to figure out what for the next year would be a good pace of sort of accountability and support without getting ourselves caught into, I mean, it sounds like the ordinance itself, if people had been comfortable with it, we would have passed it a long time ago or gotten rid of it. And it's still just kind of riding.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have gathered a lot of information, Karen. We have asked some of the homeless to be a part of this, and they have. And now I think it's time that we start sifting through what we've had and kind of figure out, would you agree, Councilman Padilla, kind of sift out what's going to work for us and what's not. But at the end of the day, I said at the first, this isn't going to be a quick turnaround. Because the ordinance that they want us to pass that's in place right now, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, says that we have to have things in order for us to pass that. Like, if we approach somebody, if I approach you, I have to offer you a safe place. Okay? If you deny it, then I can cite you. If we pass this, that's not what that's what's in place. But we have to make sure that we have a safe place to take you. And right now, we don't have that place. We can't just put it on the mission. We can't, some of these people don't even want to go to the mission. Right. So we're looking for partners that will pay for a room or whatever. So we've looked at all that, but we've had a lot of good things come out of it. This will go back to the committee, and we've been meeting about once a month. I think Christmas we kind of broke up, but we try to. I don't think we've met for the last two months, but what we try to do is, we've tried to hear from people. We've had. It just seems like more people are coming out and want to be a part of this, and how can they help? So I think we're almost there, but at the same time, it's nothing that can be rushed if we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. And it seems like we're on the right track because so many people are sending me emails of, look at this, look at how they did this, or, involve the homelessness and listen to them. And we had about an hour worth of testimony from. It wasn't a pretty meeting. It really wasn't. To hear them come up and have a different tune is neat because, again, they thought, you're taking something from us that we don't want you to take, not understanding. So, and I think Sasha and Corey have done a good job by taking them at that meeting and kind of sifting through and talking to them and how can we help you, along with other people that were at that meeting. There was a church group there that they go out and see about them, and so there's different people that keep popping up, which is going to be beneficial to us. So this will continue to stay in committee. I will make it a point to meet with Lisa, talk to Corey and the Homeless Task Force. I thought they had something else for me before we have our next meeting, and I'll schedule another meeting probably at the end of the month. But it's nothing that I want to rush. I don't know about the other council members, but it's nothing that I want to rush because we've learned so much. We're learning from them, and they're learning from us. And I think that's what it's all about. And like I said, when you see Mr. Rango, and look at him today, standing there, he doesn't look as broken as he was when we seen him before. He was broken. He was broken. His appearance was broken. His spirit was broken. And he's looking really, really good. And he's talking about being with his family. And so that's awesome.
Councilwoman
If
Hiller.
I may, that's why I asked, because it's actually been about 4 months since the committee met. It was probably November, because you hadn't met before the last time this rolled up on its 90-day. You had just met, and which is okay. I mean, it needs time, and obviously that time is working. So that's why I asked. And it could be that at the end of the day, we just decide we don't even need to pass anything. And so that's why I brought it up. So
okay.
If it should stay in committee, you've chaired it and you've done a wonderful job. I just, again, I got the word from the street that people felt that was sort of ominous, but if it's getting movement and we're all talking, then it wouldn't be as ominous as maybe.
So Councilwoman Ortiz, at this point in time, would you like to make a motion to bring it back in 90 days?
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Ortiz, and we have a
Mayor?
second?
That'll automatically happen by rules.
Oh, automatically happens, beautiful, all right.
Right.
So if there's no other discussion on this item, thank you so much for the discussion. We move on to the next item, which is item, I'm sorry?
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman
I
Ortiz.
just want to say to the committee, thank you for allowing us and being patient with us. Because it's a lot of stuff that we have been handed down. I don't know if Mr. Padilla wants to add anything, but I just want to say thank you, and feel free at any time to give either of the committee members a call. We want to do it, we want to do it right, and we want to help the people. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further comments, we move on to item D. If the clerk would read.
D is an update and possible action on the proposed traffic and pedestrian safety ordinance.
Councilman Jensen.
Thank you. As per usual, we are in a holding pattern around, yeah. So, also important work, but what you guys are doing is very important too, so we're happy to hang on until you're ready for us. But we're looking forward to getting the two committees together and solving this problem in our community as best we can.
Okay. Additional comments or questions? Councilman Cohen.
I had a question about, back when we started discussing the pedestrian safety ordinance, they had a map, and the map had streets lined on it, and as we got closer to the center of the core, almost all the streets were covered with the color, whatever it was, and I was wondering if that was ever hashed out on why that was done instead of just the main thoroughfares.
City Manager.
Well, I think it was through the discussion that those areas were more commonly occurring issues were happening with pedestrian and vehicle accidents. But, I mean, I'll get the formal from the engineers regarding why that was a boxed off area and why that was something that was being recommended.
Okay.
That's my recollection.
All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Well, that was in my district, and I don't recall any data that showed that there were pedestrian problems. But I've said this before, but it seems like the issue was panhandling, and the ordinance was pedestrian and traffic safety. I guess, to me, if it's not moving forward, and the action that's happening in public health and safety is addressing the needs of homeless folks, if this is still an issue that we need to address some way, fine. But if it's not, then we should make it go away.
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Jensen.
It is an issue we still need to address, but solving that problem requires the same people that are working with Councilwoman Ortiz, and these are volunteers, unpaid volunteers. So it's inappropriate for us to stack too much work on them simultaneously. And so obviously, folks that don't have a home to go to, that's pretty important. So we're happy to let the work on that move forward, and then we'll pick this part up as soon as time allows. But the whole point behind that is not to overwhelm the volunteers that are trying so desperately to help us solve this problem in our community. It is still an issue. It's a very serious issue, and we need to resolve it at some point. But we need to get it right instead of rush it.
If I could ask a second procedural question. Every year, we elect new committees, so actually, public health and safety will be some people the same and some different. I don't know that I've been involved with a special committee carrying over. Is that special committee, maybe it's a legal question, appointed indefinitely, or did that also need refreshing at the beginning of the year?
City Attorney.
Councilmember Hiller, I don't believe that there was any term set for that special committee, so I think it goes until the committee decides that its business has been concluded.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Additional comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, we move on to item 5, the non-action items. Item A, if the clerk would read.
A is discussion concerning cereal malt beverage and alcoholic liquor regulations.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Governing body, tonight, Deputy City Attorney Mary Feeney will come forward and discuss the changes we need to make regarding the cereal malt beverage state legislature passed a new law, and therefore it forces us to make some changes in our current ordinances. Mary?
Good evening, governing body. The city manager is correct. On April 1st, cereal malt beverage retailers will be able to sell beer. And so cities all across Kansas are changing their ordinances to accommodate that state law change. So that's why I'm here tonight. During the review of these ordinances, the legal department found some other ordinances that needed to be updated and changed. Some of these ordinances hail from the 40s, and a lot of the ordinances needed to be repealed or amended as a result. So you have in front of you the ordinance. You have a chart that shows all of the changes. Councilmember Padilla, as a former ABC director, was kind enough to review the ordinance, and he had ABC Director Beavers also review the ordinance, and they made some changes, which I incorporated here. And then finally, I asked Tuck Duncan, who represents a lot of the stakeholders in the liquor business. He looked at it, suggested some changes, and so what you have in front of you has been a vetted ordinance from the stakeholders. I'm not going to go through all of the changes. There are numerous. Most of them are nomenclature changes. I'll outline a couple of changes that are important. We have two kinds of CMB retailers. We've got businesses that sell packaged CMB for consumption off the premises. Those are your Hy-Vees, your Dillons, Walmart. And so on April 1st, they're going to be able to sell beer that doesn't exceed 6% alcohol by volume. So we've got the off-premises retailers, and then we've got the on-premises retailers. And we only have about 9 licenses of them. They are Glory Days, Lapitas, Perubskis. So on April 1st, they too will be able to sell beer. So that's the first change. The second change is there are 3 new occupational tax categories. State law allows cities to impose a biennial occupation tax on certain players in the liquor world, like distributors, manufacturers. So the state legislature has created 3 new categories: public venue, a wine distributor, and caterers. Public venue would incorporate Heartland Park. Wine distributor, I'm not sure whether there are any wine distributors in Topeka, but that would be $2,000. And then more importantly, we have caterers. We have about 12 caterers licensed by ABC, and if the governing body wishes to impose an occupational tax on them in the amount of $500, we can do that as well. But that's up to you. We don't have to do it. So those are the 2 main changes. I'm open for questions, or if you have questions later on, you can contact me and can answer them.
Councilman Jensen.
Thank you. So are you imposing new taxes now with this, or is this just changing existing ordinances to match state law?
This is imposing new taxes that state law allows us to impose.
Okay. Could you give me a list, or is that specifically in here where it states exactly who we're going to charge more money to above and beyond what's being charged now? Because in effect, you're asking us to raise taxes.
That's
and I'd
true.
like a lot more information about why that's a good idea.
That's true. Well, again, the public venue license, Heartland Park is the only entity that meets the definition of public venue.
Okay.
They're currently paying $500
Yeah.
for a drinking establishment. If this is passed, they'll have to pay $1,000 every 2 years.
Okay.
But again, this is an option. You don't have to impose these taxes.
Okay.
Wine distributor, we have Strathman, which is a beer, spirit, and wine distributor. And that Strathman pays $2,000. Under this, they would simply pay $2,000. They wouldn't be required to pay $2,000 for beer, $2,000 for spirits,
So
$2,000
their
for
price
wine.
would stay the same?
Stay the same.
Okay.
And then caterers. Now, that would be $500 for the 12 caterers who are licensed by ABC.
And most of these are small businesses. $500 is a lot of money to them.
That I can't answer. I can certainly give you a list of them if you would like to see them.
Yeah, that'd be good, because our due
Okay.
diligence is to reach out and discuss it with them, because my guess is these folks have no idea that we're about to stick them for a chunk of change.
Okay, I will provide that list
Okay.
to the governing body.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Heller.
If I could ask, Mary, on the caterers, is that because this is fresh for me, so sorry if it's in here.
That's okay.
Because they would be would be charged this if they are selling wine and beer or some sort of alcohol, and they haven't been able to do that before, and now they will?
Actually, they're already licensed by ABC to cater. We just haven't been charging them the occupational license tax.
Okay. So this isn't, the changes otherwise in the law aren't allowing them to do more than they could before?
Correct.
We would just be charging them a fee.
That's correct. And again, we don't have, that's
Okay.
up to you all.
Thank you for mentioning. Thank you.
Other questions?
Seeing no further questions, Mary, thank you so much for your
Okay.
presentation.
I'll get the list.
We now move on to item B, if the clerk would read.
B is discussion of the proposed 2020 to 2029 capital improvement plan and 2020 to 2022 capital improvement budget.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And governing body, tonight we continue our discussion on the budget. Still looking at capital improvement projects and looking at that budget. Nick is going to go through some information related to the questions and answers, and then some of the projections relative to the bonding, and go through and answer any questions that you may have as we continue this process.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body. So tonight is the third public discussion that we've had on the 2020 CIP. We kicked off the CIP discussions at the February 5th meeting, providing a financial background on the CIP and going over the policy. And then we had a workshop on Saturday, February 9th, to go over specific projects within the CIP. And tonight's discussion is going to focus on follow-up questions that we've received from the February 9th, and then we'll talk about next steps with the CIP process. The majority of this presentation is going to focus on a couple of debt scenarios that we've run, because we've had a number of questions on that. But we'll also allow some time for any follow-up questions that you've got. We'll have 1 to 2 more discussions before we put the CIP out for adoption. So you do have in your packets a CIP supplement question and answer that was sent out last Wednesday that covers questions that were brought up during the February 9th meeting, and I'm happy to go over any additional questions that you have on that. We will post that to the website so that folks who are following the CIP process will be able to see that information as well. But again, what I wanted to spend just a little bit of time tonight on was talking about debt, and specifically general obligation bonds. And so the 2020 CIP proposes about $33.6 million in GO bonding debt, which is above the $27 million cap that was put in place in the CIP policy. Formally in 2016, informally this has been going on since about 2008, 2009. What this chart here shows is the existing debt service and proposed debt service if we kept the $27 million cap in place. So you can see for the next 6-7 years, our overall debt service payments remain about the same as what they are today. If we continue to add, will roughly be about $9 million annual in debt. Looking at our overall outstanding debt over time, we are paying off more than what we are bringing in. And so you can see the slope is showing a downward trend, and specifically once we get past about 2022, 2023, it starts to level out, and that's showing what consistently keeping up with that $27 million cap looks like. On the high end that we've talked about, what we think we have the capacity to do within the current debt service fund that we have is a $39 million cap. And what that would be about, what we've run is about $13 million a year going through 2039. So looking out 20 plus years, what that same chart looks like in relation to the current cap. And so you see a little bit of a bump in 2023, 2024, 25. Within our current debt service fund and with the forecasting that we've done, we have the ability to make those payments and not be in violation of any of our debt service debt fund policies, with the exception of increasing the overall cap. There have been a number of different scenarios that have been requested. What we wanted to show was the current and what we think is kind of the high end of that. Any scenarios, including the one that we're proposing in the 2020 CIP, which is about right in the middle of this, are scenarios that we could do if requested by the governing body. Overall, what I really want to show, again, in this slide is that we have the capacity right now within our debt service fund without increasing the mill levy and still continuing the overall downward trend of outstanding debt, of general obligation bond debt. We have the capacity to do that without essentially raising the mill levy or impacting other operating funds with that potential change. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, talk about any of the assumptions that we've made, any concerns that you have on this. I know jumping from 27 to 39 over a 3-year period is a lot. Jumping from 27 to 33 is an increase, but we believe as a staff that we have that capacity, and we're fairly conservative in how we forecast our debt service fund. We use a 1% increase to assess valuation each year, which, if you remember from our budget discussions in 2019, assessed valuation is projected to grow about 4% in 2019. And there was an article in the Capital Journal that's showing that about 76% of the properties in Shawnee County are going up in assessed valuation. That's not always going to be the case, and so that's why we're conservative in our estimates, and believe that any scenario that the council is comfortable with, kind of between those kind of bookends, we would be comfortable with as a staff.
Councilman Jensen.
Thank you. Could you speak quickly to what our cash reserves would look like as part of all of this? Is it intended to stay the same? Are they going to lower? How does what we would have actually on hand play into your long-term forecasting?
So, and there are a couple different ways that we could structure the debt that wouldn't impact our cash reserves at all. But say under the $39 million cap, if you look 2023 through 2025, there would be a slight dip in cash reserves. We are actually at about 35% in our debt service fund right now, so very healthy balance, and added to that again in 2018. And at no point would we dip to a point that would, we would be in danger of going below the 15% cap that we have in place. And then it really, after that point, we're actually adding back to fund balance after.
So all this assumes at least a minimum of 15%?
Yes.
Impressive.
Councilwoman Heller.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to drill this too hard right here, but I think your blue chart is correct. It shows that we are continuing to borrow every year, and it drops a little bit in terms of fund balance because we're just now getting it down. At least I hope it's correct. But I have to challenge your red charts because there is no way that our debt service payments will go down if we are borrowing 30% more per year than we are right now. And the best I can figure out from that chart is that somehow it has only, I've studied the ones that you sent out to us, that it only has 13 million one time, and then that's amortizing down, paying off everything, instead of adding back the 13 million every year.
So what?
You just don't pay down to zero if you keep borrowing 13 million a year,
So-
even if you're paying off debt.
So what is shown in red is existing debt service. Everything that's in white is new debt service that would be put in through either in the $27 million cap or the $13 million. That goes out 20 years, adding $13 million each year. And so you do start to see it after about 2041, it starts going down. We just didn't run it past that point. Just wanting to show the trend that once you get to about 2037, that would be fully at $13 million a year. Does that help?
You can't stop borrowing 13 million a year if that's what your borrowing is going to be. What will be most informative to the council is to look at the one like that, and if everybody knows that they really shouldn't look past 2039 or whatever, is the comparison with what that debt service is per year holding to the $27 million cap versus what the debt service is per year with a $39 million cap. And we're going to be paying more per year if we're borrowing 30% more per year than we are today.
Yeah, so what we put in terms of an interest rate, if that's helpful, is that 3.25%, which is a conservative estimate. Right now, the market rate is about 2.85% on borrowing. And so with that, we assume the same rate, which obviously that will change from year to year on what we're able to borrow. With the $13 million cap in place, that's about $17 million a year if you take into account principal and interest that we'd be paying off each year,
That's
which
right.
to your point is interest would be about 30% on that. If you look at the $27 million cap that we have right now, the annual debt service would be close to $12 million per year once we take off all the existing debt that we have and would just be borrowing at that that $27 million cap level. So there's a difference of about $5 million there between a $39 million cap and a $27 million cap.
$5 million a year.
Yes, so there's obviously some additional interest that you're paying with a higher cap.
That's the number that I feel like everybody needs to know, whatever that is, and it's been hard for me to get it on these particular charts. But if we in fact are going to borrow, if it always costs at least 30% more to borrow, and then we're going to borrow annually 30% more than we are today, that line has to go up, and it's not going up in that chart.
This is not taking into account inflation. We would be we'd be borrowing at $13 million a year or $9 million a year.
Right.
Whatever. If we extended that out past 2039, this chart would just stay flat through the rest of those years because we'd be borrowing the same amount at, assuming the same interest rate. We would be borrowing the same amount, so it would be flat. We wouldn't be adding more to that unless we increase the cap.
City manager.
Absolutely.
The only thing that I'd like to add, remember, is that this is what we're showing you what could be done. We feel that the 39 million cap over a 3-year period is what could happen, could be sustainable by our amount of money that we get through our debt service levy and the interest that we earn from when we sell the bonds and those types of things, factoring all those things in, we could handle the $39 million cap. That's the position that we have from our debt counsel, from analysis that Nick's done. And so it is possible for us to do this. We're not proposing to borrow 30% more. You know, what we're looking at is the 33.6, not 39. So, but I think the key for me was to show you this is the max, and we're really doing much less than that. And we've identified projects that we feel are needed in order to be able to utilize that money in a better way to attack the issues that we have. And so that's why we're proposing a higher level. And we can go back and discuss the projects and to determine whether or not those projects are worthy of us increasing the cap level in order to consider. I think that's where I think the issue needs to focus. And we'll figure out a better way to explain it to Councilwoman Hiller and share it with the rest of you. But I think the issue that we need to pay attention to is we're trying to show you what's possible, because you as decision makers have to be able to know that we can handle it if we're proposing for additional changes and to be able to borrow more. And so that's what we're trying to show by these figures, is that it is possible for us to do. Then you can feel free to determine whether those projects are projects that are warranted for us to consider when we go back and look at amendments or consideration for final approval.
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Hawkins, and maybe this is something I need to ask the city manager, Mr. Trout, but will there be a time, because I would also be interested in seeing kind of how your kind of different scenarios, and right now it's kind of an iterative process where one of us asks for something and then you have to run it and then you give it to us in a PDF format, which we can't really manipulate or really see how you arrived at the numbers. And maybe a more efficient way, could one or two of us, or any of us that want to come, as long as we don't violate COMA, sit down sometime with you on a spreadsheet and see how all this stuff works? Because I think that's part of the frustration. I spent about an hour and a half today trying to get numbers on a spreadsheet to match up to your interest rate numbers and stuff, but I don't know the compounding periods. I don't know, the different various interest rate on all the different bonds. So I was trying to get it to work and I could not get there, but I assume you have all that.
Well, I'm not sure how to do that, but let me think about it and see what I can come up with for you guys between now and next week.
Okay, sounds great.
We may be able to propose some models and do that.
Yeah, I just want to streamline it, because right now, it takes a couple days to ask, a couple days to get a response, and then.
And we work through these with the professionals to determine, get these spreadsheets done and.
Sure. Thanks.
I don't see additional comments or any questions with regards to this. Nick, if you have anything else that you would like to.
Just real quick, going over the calendar. So again, I talked about tonight is the third discussion of our CIP process. In the supplement provided, and also in the email I sent out last Wednesday, if we're looking to do amendments next week, which we currently have on the schedule, we would ask that any potential amendments or any projects that you might be looking at as potential candidates for being moved, if over the next couple of days you could share those with us, specifically with a lot of the capital projects. Any movement in time of those has a ripple effect on other projects, and so in order to give staff enough time to review to see if movement of a project is possible, we would like to have that so we can get back to you and provide an answer before the next meeting of the governing body. If not comfortable with amendments on the 12th, we're proposing 19th as another possible discussion, still keeping on the tentative timeline of adoption of the CIB and CIP in the first meeting of April, which would be April 2nd. So that all.
Additional comments or questions? Councilwoman Hiller.
Just one. I also asked, just to understand this, a week ago. I asked for these tables in December, but last week just because the numbers, when you simplify them or don't lie to me, I asked for what number you were using in terms of how much you thought we would have available in the debt service fund to pay these annual payments, and I didn't get an answer. So I don't know if you're using the same number every year or a different one, but for me to come back and make those recommendations that you want by Friday, I wanted to know what I was talking about so that I could look at a dollar figure, and I don't feel like I have it yet. So I'll do my best, but I feel like I'm kind of shooting in the dark. Thanks.
Mayor.
City Manager.
There were some meetings that I needed to have with him that slowed up his response, so I apologize. So it was not on Nick, it was on me, okay?
Thanks.
Councilman Mays.
Nick, I've got a question on the spreadsheet of all the projects and things. I've noticed a couple of the items are listed in two places. A project will be listed under the general obligation bonds and then again under the city sales tax. I guess I just need help understanding why that is.
Yes, so there was a request from the February 9th meeting to put an asterisk next to projects that have multiple funding sources, and I believe that was one of the follow-ups that we provided. I can send that again, but some projects are, as you noted, are funded partially through general obligation bonds or citywide sales tax. A lot of times we have the federal funds. Federal fund section, those are almost always local match, so you'll see it in more than one place. We can resend that spreadsheet out that clarifies that. We put an asterisk in there to show what those specific projects are.
So it was sent out after the meeting? I must have missed it.
Yeah, that was, I believe, on the 18th. But I will make sure to send that out again.
I can go back through and find it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Excuse me.
City Manager, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. The other comment I'll make, Councilman Mays, is if you go to the full sheet that is listed rather than the combined list and go to the full sheet and look at the bottom, it shows the funding sources for each location, so you can look in more detail as to what the funding sources are for that project.
Okay.
I know it's not as easy, I mean, everybody wants to look at the main sheet, but if you go to the supplemental sheet that has for each project, it'll help show the funding sources.
If I may. Yeah, and I know that the spreadsheets are a lot more helpful, though, because, as Nick said, there is a ripple effect. When you move one project, it creates problems with others, and so it's easier to see them on one page instead of trying to flip through and find them, so, thanks.
Seeing no further comments or questions, thank you very much for your presentation, Nick. We now move on to the announcements. The clerk?
The March 12th agenda has a presentation for Topeka Metro Exceptional Driving Award. On the consent agenda, we have a special event resolution for the 99.3 Eagle Cruise Night. Action items include the cereal, malt beverage, and alcoholic liquor regulations we discussed tonight, and then the revised project budget for City Hall project. Non-action items, discussion for the electric assisted scooters ordinance and the proposed 2020-29 CIP plan.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, governing body. I want to introduce a new staff member, Jessica Lemondola. If you could come forward, please. Jessica is our new finance director, and she's here now on the job as of yesterday. Jessica?
Hi, good evening, Mayor, council members, City Manager. Thank you for the opportunity to come back to my home state. I was born and raised in Kansas. My husband Joe and my son Gavin, both New Yorkers, are not going to be Kansans, so thank you for that opportunity. So they're going to have a lot to learn, as will I, about the city. So I look forward to meeting with you guys individually, just understanding more about the city, more about your priorities. A little bit about my background. I've been in public finance for over a decade. So compared to some of my staff members who have been here for 3 decades, I know it's just a drop in the bucket, but I really look forward to bringing some of my expertise to you and then also learning from you. One of the areas that I have the most experience in is debt management. So I really look forward to working with Nick. I think he's doing an excellent job. But I just, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. That's it?
Sorry, and it was already mentioned, I was going to talk about it, but the effort that Corey and her staff and Sasha to move forward with the Housing First initiative, it was already discussed tonight, but recognized that they leaned forward and found a way to reach out to people and make a difference. So I appreciate their efforts.
Thank you very much. So he's being nice, but what he's not telling you is that at 5:30, I was serving food and he was eating where I was serving food. I didn't get a call. We were both leaving the same meeting. He shows up, he's grabbing the food and I'm serving it out. So I got you. I wanted to just make a few remarks. First of all, we lost in the city of Topeka Stephanie Mott. Regardless of what your values tell you with regards to her lifestyle, here's one thing that we can appreciate for an individual such as her. Stephanie addressed every single individual, whether you agreed or disagreed with her point of view and her lifestyle, with nothing but compassion. She was an advocate for many individuals that really did not have a voice. And it came to everybody as a huge surprise because she was very active on Saturday. And next thing you know, she passed away. So our condolences, not only to the family, but also to the community, because it's been amazing to see. My Facebook page has just been drowned by a whole bunch of comments with regards to her loss and the impact that she had on our community. Moving on to a little happier items. We have a youth council, my friends. I think that everybody received applications of young individuals, and I know that I've been asked questions, so how is this going to work and how is this going to go? City manager and I had talked about you know that we always do 3 meetings in a month. Well, then in every quarter, we would have a 4th meeting in which I would sit down with the students and they would be sitting in your seats, and they are going to set up an agenda. You guys could suggest items to them as well for them to discuss as you're looking at your agenda items, for them to have presentations from our staff and maybe learn about city issues and have crucial discussions. The idea is that you guys are going to get a chance to sit down with these students after those meetings and just have coffee with them or have a phone call with them. You don't have to pick them up from school all the time. They're pretty impressive people. But then eventually they will come and they will provide a presentation to the council with regards to what they discussed and what their recommendations or their opinions are with regards to an issue. They understand that just like an individual with public comment, they could come with very strong arguments, but sometimes policy-wise, we may not see eye to eye. They get that. But it's very exciting to know that we have a young group of people. If you need any information to the council members, just let me know. I had one council member reach out with questions, and they're looking forward to all of you guys calling them. I know that Councilwoman Hiller already contacted hers, and I think that Councilman Emerson contacted his. So I know that there's been contact with people, so I'm super excited about this. In other exciting news, we today, Councilwoman Hiller and I, were in a meeting in which they did a release on a downtown market study. And I want to tell all of you guys you're geniuses. Because when we all had our strategic planning session, we talked about how many residences we wanted to see increase in downtown and in the city of Topeka. We talked about 1,000. They talked about 895 or 995, something like that. It was close to 1,000.
Well, you figure we got 150, we're dead on. Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was really close to that, but they were saying that there is an appetite in the city of Topeka that we could grow close to 1,000 residences in this area in the next few years, that the market would hold it. They're talking about trends of individuals moving towards downtown areas, more vibrant areas, and talking about how we start creating that housing availability, that we have to ensure that there's rentals. Another thing that was really interesting is that, hey, it's millennials that are moving, and when we have millennials that have student loans that they're paying, we have to make sure that those rents are affordable. And so we have to increase residences, not only residences, but also affordable residences in our downtown core. The other thing that they talked about was the river. And I was very excited for them to say, hey, you guys have a huge potential down there. And if you guys start doing things so that you could make your river navigable, they talked about what was it that they called it? The go big.
Go big or go small.
Go small. So they had 2 different options of what people did in their communities, but what that did was incentivize like hotel rooms and convention centers and different sorts of activities, so that they identified those as hot pockets in our community. The other thing that they talked about is Van Buren. And they talked about having Van Buren, which is a street that would connect the river to our Capitol building, become a residential area. I mean, so there's a whole bunch of cool things. They also talked about how do we partner with our private partners to do this and make it happen. And I think that the one thing that was missing is us being able to come back to the body with that presentation, and then the body having a discussion on how we're going to do policies so that we can incentivize that growth. And now we have a market study that says that we could make it happen. So that was phenomenal. Closing, I want to say thank you to Chief Duke and Chief Cochran. I received a note this week from a community leader. They let me know that they had a small fire incident. The fire department showed up. They said that they were amazing, excellent customer service. He said, please make sure that they know how much I appreciated them. And then they said, and by the way, the Topeka Police Department was going door to door, just doing a check on the apartments, talking to residents, talking about any challenges that they might have, talking about safety, and it was wonderful. Great interaction with our police officers as well. And in a final closing remark, just remember everybody, not this Tuesday, next Tuesday, I would love to see all the good things that you're doing in the community, because that's my birthday. All I'm asking you guys to do is to do good things in the city and let me know how good you did. With that, Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the market study thing was great. I don't know if we have it calendared yet to share, but we should. And I also said at the end of that, I have met Isabel, my rep to the Youth Council, and she's awesome. I highly recommend, by the way, the front, sitting in the comfortable chairs at the front windows of the weather room for your Sunday afternoon get-togethers with your high schoolers. She's just great. But I had told her about the river and downtown things, and she had already had some orientation and was really on fire about these opportunities. I think we're going to have a really great group and an opportunity to genuinely not just talk about it, but let our young people really get engaged at a good time for us. So all the way around, good stuff. I too want to just give great credit to Stephanie Mott. She's one of the kindest, most thoughtful and inspirational people I've ever known. And I think, hopefully, must have been her time, but she set a good example for all of us and for our community of loving and caring and doing the right thing. And maybe I guess it's our time to fill her shoes just a little more, but she was a really special person, so we'll miss her, and I certainly honor her. And then, on a little higher note, I promised a person who emailed me who said, well, can you mention this at the council meeting? And okay. This was a suggestion that this person had about what to do with Westridge Mall. And she thought that turning at least a wing of it into senior citizen housing, speaking of housing today, would be a really great idea. And we had a little bit of an exchange, because I think a lot of us kind of look around at the emails that we get from urban development groups or the League of Cities or whoever and watch those ideas come through. But some of the ones I've liked the best were where you took an old building, train station or a mall like that, and you put your retail dining on the first floor, and then people live upstairs in these little tiny apartments, very upscale sometimes, but very small, and the whole big area is their home and living room. And I think we, rather than being too concerned, of course we should be about Westridge. It was fun to get her ideas, and I hope any other people that have ideas go ahead and send them in. We as the city do not control what happens to Westridge Mall, but we certainly have the opportunity to visit with people and share ideas, and I thought hers about having some seniors out there was a great one. So with that, your turn.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank the street crews for making it possible for us to get around in this challenging weather. I'd also like to thank Chief Duke and Tony for making sure I got out of here and got home safely the other night in that storm. It is challenging, and on my way home, I hooked up with somebody a snowblower that went through and knocked all the snow on my car. But I've heard a lot of positive things. I really don't want to see the bill and how much it's going to cost us, Mr. Peak, but I know that's what people are screaming for, so I hope that they're ready to see how much we've paid, because we haven't in a few months or years, we haven't had that. So anyway, I just want to thank them for all the hard work that they've done, the smiles on their faces while they're driving those big trucks down the street. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. After, the past week, there's been some people filing for council seats that are open this year. And since that article came out in the Capital Journal about a couple of people, I guess I'm happy to say numerous people in my district have asked me about it and my intentions for next year or for this year, and have encouraged me to run. It's a difficult decision because I have a son going to high school next year, and his whole high school I'll be doing this, and you miss so much of your family time. That's the toughest thing, and I don't know how the mayor does it with her daughters. However, I feel like there's still a lot of work to be done and things that I can contribute. So I will be filing within the next few days for election this year, and that's maybe good news for District 4, maybe terrible news for District 4, but that's what I'm going to do. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilman Padilla, are you running?
Can I, running from this guy, could I have the names of those people who have been calling you? Okay, I was just wondering. No, good news. Just a couple things. I want to acknowledge the Topeka Police Department. I think today, or is it tomorrow, Chief, that the Citizens Academy starts? Thursday. You've got, what, 30 people in it, I think? 35. That's excellent. There's always a crowd, it seems like, for that. It doesn't seem like the citizens are tired of having that opportunity. So congratulations on having that turnout. A quick question. If any of the council members decided that on any given night presentation, they wanted to stick their heads in there just to see how things were done, is that possible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, I would encourage you all to do that, just to see the variety and the diversity of people who attend this Citizens Academy. You might be surprised to see that diversity and their enthusiasm for learning about their police department. So again, congratulations. Tomorrow, I'll be going to the Safe Streets presentation. I'm able to go now because some of my schedules have changed. For a while, I hadn't been able to attend, but there's a particular reason I want to go tomorrow, and it kind of follows up on the Youth Council. Having worked down at the Judicial Center, I got to know a lady there by the name of Rachel White, and I've yet to meet her daughter, who I hope to meet tomorrow, by the name of Madison. They are both being recognized tomorrow for the persons of character because, Mr. Trout, what was that, about maybe a couple of months ago, they had that accident on Burlingame that a car went off the road, went into the ditch. The driver and his wife were severely injured. The driver, though, was able to get out and walk around a little bit to try and wave down help. And it was at night, and there was traffic, and traffic was going around him, trying to avoid hitting him, but at the same time not stopping to offer aid. But this woman saw it, immediately stopped, and she and her daughter were the first persons to approach the gentleman and offer aid before the first responders arrived on the scene. And I thought that was very commendable of both her and her daughter to do that. And so for that action, tomorrow they're receiving that Persons of Character Award, and I want to be there to applaud their efforts and their act of kindness at a time of emergency. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hunter is 3 weeks old. Yes, he's growing like a weed. So far, so good. Mr. Robertson, if you would draft a vote of no confidence ordinance in Punxsutawney Phil, I would very much like to introduce that in the coming weeks.
this has been a challenging winter for everybody, for our citizens, for the crews, from the street department, from the police, the fire. And I just want to commend everybody for doing the best we can with what we've been dealt. We haven't seen this in a number of years, and despite the fact that, you know, we haven't had to dig out all of the snow plows and run them again and again and again for years, we're doing an outstanding job as best we can, and everyone who works on that overnight should be commended. Thank you so much.
Councilman Jensen, just for your information, police department arrested Punxsutawney Phil.
Oh, even better. Fabulous.
Councilman Mays.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to also congratulate Public Works on the snow removal efforts. I was telling Jason as we were walking in that this is the first snow event that I received 0 complaints. So that's a marked improvement from where we were in October. And I think that's good, and it's important that people know that we're listening, and we've kind of changed the way we're doing things a little bit. Also wanted to congratulate them. I went to a neighborhood meeting yesterday. We've got a big street construction project in one of my neighborhoods, and the communication was great. We had a huge turnout. I would say there's probably 60 people there at 4:30 on a Monday. So I appreciate the communication with those folks, and I think they do too. I also wanted to talk about basketball. A lot of my district is in Washburn Rural District, and they are going to state basketball, both boys and girls, I believe. Also, I got a chance to take in a couple Washburn games this week. One did not go so well. The other one went really well. But anyways, their season's wrapped up. The women finished tied for 3rd this year. Wow. Men finished tied for 2nd in the MIAA. And they go to the MIAA tournament in Kansas City this weekend on Friday, and I wish them luck. Other than that, I think that's all I've got. I wanted to also second the Punxsutawney Phil.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. Boy, it's going to be hard to talk at the end of all of this fun, yeah. I was at the Development Strategies meeting over lunch today, so I kind of got the preview of the preview, and I was really impressed with the Van Buren vision, because I left there and drove down Van Buren. But I'd like to challenge us as a council this year to look at our incentive policies that we give developers, both the TIF and the CID, and is this the way of the future? I'd like for us to kind of talk about, is every development that comes up, are we going to be offering these? Or, Hy-Vee, I think, came in and did an area without any. But, I don't know the Christies, but I want more of them to come to Topeka and start building cool stuff. So, Mr. City Manager, could you make us, get us together sometime and talk about, our incentive policies and.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, that being said, I don't think there's any executive sessions tonight. And we are done. There's nobody signed up to speak. So at this point in time, we are adjourned.